For decades, we believed everything that happened on a movie set was just performance. Every scream, every shiver, every trembling voice rehearsed to perfection. But Hollywood's golden age wasn't all glamour and glitter. Behind the cameras, something else stirred. Something no director could explain, and no actor could forget. Because when the cameras stopped rolling, some stars swore they weren't acting anymore. When the lights flickered in Hollywood, old Hollywood was a place where illusions were crafted daily, where a kiss under a spotlight could become eternal, and a single tear could win an Oscar. But beneath that brilliance, a shadow lived. It crept through the sound stages of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. Actors began whispering about something wrong, lights that died without reason, voices that weren't their own, mirrors that seemed to breathe. At first, the studios dismissed it all as exhaustion, as stress, as the curse of perfection. But those who experienced it never laughed. What if the greatest performances in film history weren't performances at all? Monty's whisper. Montgomery Clift was known for his calm precision. The man could express an entire lifetime of pain with a single look. But one morning, during the shoot of a drama in the late 1950s, Clift walked on set, pale and sleepless. The crew thought it was just nerves until he said something none of them ever forgot. "It's not me who's breathing in there." The director thought he was joking. He wasn't. When they rolled camera, his voice broke low, guttural, as if two people were speaking at once. The sound engineer rewound the reel, thinking it was an echo. But it wasn't an echo. There were two separate audio sources, layered perfectly together, both coming from the same microphone. That day, one of the studio lamps exploded mid-scene. No power surge, no explanation, just a blinding flash that ended the take. They blamed the heat. Insurance reports said equipment fatigue. But the gaffer swore the bulb had been replaced just an hour earlier. Clift refused to reshoot the scene. He asked the director to cut it entirely. "That part doesn't belong to me," he said. "It belongs to the other one." That clip was never released. Even now, if you watch that movie, you'll notice a strange fade to black that wasn't in the script, like someone didn't want you to see what came next. When Maureen was pushed. Maureen O'Hara was not the type to scare easily. Strong-willed, fiery, fearless, she'd faced more than her share of wild stunts and brutal directors. But during a night shoot on a Gothic set in 1952, she suddenly bent forward mid-scene, as if shoved hard in the back. Only, no one was behind her. The camera kept rolling. Everyone assumed it was acting until the take ended and Maureen didn't get up. Her makeup artist ran to her, and that's when they saw it. Faint, finger-shaped marks pressed into her back through the thin silk of her gown. The director insisted it was muscle tension. The studio doctor wrote the same. But O'Hara's face said otherwise. "It's not tension when the air leaves you and no one touches you," she told the press days later. After that, she refused to have anyone walk behind her on set. Crew members laughed at first, until they realized the lights would flicker every time she stepped in front of the camera. They replaced generators 3 times. Still flickered. Eventually, the director ordered all lighting tests to be done with her absent. But even in her absence, when her name was spoken on set, the lights dimmed. Ava's unwritten scream. Ava Gardner had a voice like velvet, and a temper like fire. But during one particular take in 1957, something else took over. She was supposed to deliver a romantic line. Instead, she screamed a long, raw, piercing cry in a language no one recognized. The sound engineer froze. The director shouted, "Cut!" Ava collapsed, trembling. When they played the audio back, everyone went silent. Alongside Ava's voice, there was another, deeper, slower, almost mechanical breathing in perfect rhythm with hers. The assistant editor quit that week. His resignation letter was only 1 line long. "I won't work where someone else performs uncredited." Ava demanded all mirrors be removed from her dressing room. She said her reflection moved slower than her. For the rest of her career, she wore a small cross pendant on set. When asked why, she said, "It's not for faith, it's for protection." Ingrid's shadow. Ingrid Bergman had filmed all over the world, from war-torn Europe to New York soundstages. But she never forgot what happened during a quiet afternoon scene in 1949. Her gaze shifted mid-take, fixating on the far corner of the studio. The cinematographer turned. Nothing was there, just empty scaffolding. But Ingrid refused to keep going. She swore she saw a tall, motionless figure standing behind the spotlight, watching her. They laughed it off, until the temperature in that corner suddenly dropped by almost 10 degrees. Later, during playback, Her voice cut out, halfway through a sentence, not because she forgot, but because something else seemed to overlap. When slowed down, the film showed two silhouettes, Ingrid's and another, slightly behind her, moving half a second out of sync. She refused to reshoot. "I can't say those words again," she said. "They weren't mine the first time." From that day on, she never filmed alone. Even when shooting a solo close-up, she made sure a crew member stood within arm's reach. She once told her driver, "It let me go today, but I don't know if it will tomorrow." The bench that watched Flynn. Errol Flynn was known for laughing off danger. Sword fights, fire stunts, chaos, he thrived on it. Until the tavern scene. It was supposed to be a simple setup. Extras chatting, Flynn at a table delivering lines. But halfway through, he froze. "There's a man sitting on that bench," he said. "He won't stop staring at me." The crew turned. The bench was empty. He refused to continue. They shot other scenes, came back 2 days later, and it happened again. Flynn's face drained of color. Same bench, same spot. He demanded they move it. The director refused. Flynn snapped, shouting, "Either he goes or I do." The tension was unbearable. Eventually, they reviewed the footage and saw it. A faint metallic reflection in the background window, like someone's watch glinting in the dark. But when they recreated the lighting setup, the reflection wouldn't return. Flynn finished the scene under one condition: no more solo shots. A week later, his dressing room walls were found scratched from the inside. 3 words carved deep into the plaster: "It's not finished." The studio painted over it the same day. Flynn never spoke of it again. The mirror that spoke to Davis. Bette Davis had a reputation: sharp, commanding, never afraid of confrontation. But in 1953, something shook even her. While applying makeup before a dramatic scene, she stopped suddenly. When asked what happened, she said a voice had spoken not from the doorway, but from the mirror itself. "It told me not to do the scene," she whispered. Said it belonged to her. The crew thought she'd gone too deep into character, but when cameras rolled, she delivered a line that wasn't in the script. No one could explain where it came from. It was haunting, raw, so powerful the studio wanted to use it for the trailer. But Davis refused. "That line wasn't mine," she said. The director argued until the sound technician played the raw audio. Right before Davis spoke, a faint whisper can be heard, forming the exact words seconds before her lips move. The scene was deleted. Davis never discussed it again. From that day forward, she insisted all mirrors in her dressing room be covered with matte fabric. "Sometimes," she said, "the reflection keeps looking after I've left." Olivier's echo. Laurence Olivier was the definition of discipline, but even he had moments that defied logic. During a pivotal emotional scene in the early 1960s, he stopped mid-line, turned directly to the camera, and asked quietly, "Who's feeding me my words?" The crew laughed. Olivier didn't. He said he could hear another version of his own voice, deeper, older, reciting his lines seconds before he spoke them, like an echo from the future. He forgot his script entirely, something unheard of for him. He demanded the footage be reviewed, and when they did, one frame seemed to ripple, as if something unseen had darted across the background. From then on, Olivier burned incense before every shoot. When asked why, he said, "Not superstition. It clears the internal noise." His next contract contained one unusual clause: no direct natural light allowed in any scene. Was it artistic preference? Or fear of what might show up in the shadows? The song that wasn't Judy's. Judy Garland was America's sweetheart. Her voice instantly recognizable, her performances effortless. But there was one day when even she didn't recognize her own sound. During a take for a musical number, she missed a note she'd hit perfectly for years. Embarrassed, she asked to redo it. They rolled again, but this time, her tone was lower, hollow, almost empty. The sound engineer blamed the microphone. They swapped it. Same result. 2 voices came through, one Judy's, one colder, slower. She stopped singing, covered her mouth, and whispered, "It's not my song. It's hers." Later that night, she covered her mirror with a sheet. A week later, a cameraman leaked footage where Garland stared directly into the lens, her eyes entirely black. The reel was confiscated and destroyed. From then on, she refused to be filmed alone. When a journalist asked her years later if she remembered that day, she said only, "That role changed my voice, and I don't want to find it again." Joan and the reflection that moved first. Joan Crawford's routine was sacred mirror, lipstick, perfection. But one morning, she froze. Her reflection had tilted its head before she did. She said she felt a tight pull at her throat, like something trying to speak through her. Later that week, during a scene, she delivered 2 unscripted lines word for word from a cancelled film shot over a decade earlier, one she had never worked on. The crew thought she was improvising until an assistant compared it to an old script. The lines matched exactly. When asked how she knew them, she said quietly, "If I said them, someone was using me as their script." The director deleted the footage, claiming creative inconsistency. But the worst came during a late-night scene. As Joan raised her voice, all lights cut out for 6 seconds. When power returned, she was standing out of frame, mouth moving soundlessly. When asked what had happened, she said, "Whatever's behind that dressing room door was never in the script." She left the set that night and never returned. The pattern they tried to erase. In Hollywood, when something can't be explained, it gets edited out. A scream becomes technical interference. A shadow becomes film damage. A voice overlap becomes faulty tape. But when the same pattern appears across decades, across studios, across stars, the questions get harder to bury. Why did so many of these incidents involve mirrors, voices, or sudden flickers of light? Why were all the most disturbing takes erased, and who gave those orders? Sound technicians who worked during the 1950s claimed that reels from those productions often came back heavier than when they left, as if something extra had been recorded onto them. Some assistants swore they could hear breathing in silent footage. Others claimed the negative smelled of ozone, as though burned by invisible current. And yet, none of this made the papers. Not a word. The studios controlled the narrative, and the stars were too afraid of being labeled unstable. But the stories survived, passed quietly, between camera operators, editors, makeup artists. Every time someone said, "It's just method acting," someone else would mutter, "That's what they called it last time, too." The theory that terrifies every film historian. Years later, film archivists began noticing something strange in preserved reels from the Golden Age. Frames that should have been static showed microscopic flickers, shadows that didn't belong, outlines half a step behind the actors. Some called it a visual anomaly, an exposure error, but others believed something else, that intense human emotion could imprint itself onto film stock, like a scar, and that maybe, just maybe, those actors had tapped into something far beyond performance, a force that borrowed their bodies to express itself. Even today, researchers analyzing remastered versions of those movies claim to hear faint whispers layered under the dialogue. You can call it coincidence, or you can call it evidence. But one thing is certain, these weren't isolated events. Conclusion: what you see isn't always what's acted. When you watch an old Hollywood classic, remember this: not everything captured on film was meant to be seen. Some scenes were never released because of bad lighting, others because someone swore the film looked back. Actors who made us believe in love, heartbreak, and madness may have been channeling something none of us fully understand. Maybe genius always walks the edge of the unknown. Maybe fame opens doors we shouldn't open. Or maybe the cameras of that era captured more than just performances. Maybe they caught glimpses of something or someone that wanted to be remembered. Because in the golden age of cinema, art imitated life until life started imitating the dead. So next time you're watching a classic, and the screen flickers for just a second, ask yourself, was that the film aging, or someone trying to finish their scene? If these stories unsettled you, you're not alone. Drop a comment on which actor's story creeped you out the most. And if you want to know what happened when one of these reels resurfaced decades later, make sure you're subscribed. Because in our next video, we'll uncover what was found inside those destroyed film reels and why one restoration expert quit after hearing what was on the tape.